What is up, jabronis? JJ back here with Spread. Let me even myself out here with you, Spread. You look a lot taller than I do. You might be. But, so we're in Canada, right? We swap countries temporarily. One of the bigger tournaments in this region, if you will, between the U.S. The hardcourt tour, if you will. What are your thoughts on? I know we've only been through qualies a bit, and I guess through some randomness as well. Any thoughts on what you've seen so far from this tournament? Maybe even today.
Yeah, I mean, I watched most of the women's matches today. Had a good time. Now, of course, this is a fun tournament because they switch sites. So, they play the men play in Toronto one year, and then they play in Montreal the other. Toronto, I think, if I remember right, is the slower surface. Montreal's a little quicker, but both air towards the slow side rather than the quick side, which will be in contrast to Cincinnati that we see next week. And other than that, today, really not a lot of surprises. I watched my favorite player this morning, Ostapenko. Always bet against her if she's a favorite. That held true. And then Ocean Dodan had a very nice win over your girl Muhova.
Oh yeah.
So we rate Muhova. So I rate that win for Dodan.
Dan had a very nice.
And so I'm going to be having a lot of fun with her. And I'm going to be backing her a lot in the next 3 weeks. And then the third one I watched was Ons Jabeur, who just put a clinic on who's a player. It's not that bad either, a young American player. But a lot of fun today watching it. And this is the first of the men that I've watching Pospisil and Tommy Paul.
Yeah, interested in this match as well. As you know, I'm on Paul here. But Paul's a bit erratic, right? As it's always been. So I'm interested to see how this plays out from a talent perspective. I would expect. I know this was a coin flip match anyway, but Paul's to me was more well deserving of a better line. But either way, interested to see how that plays out. And I guess we'll start, right? So we want to do 5 men's matches, 5 women's matches. We'll do a lot of the closer spreads. We'll start with Isner and Fokina. So current line, Isner $160. Hard courts here. Of course, always a lot to like about Isner. And if this goes to tiebreak, of course, I think it's just a typical Isner match. So I don't see how he's going to get many break chances against Fokina, who moves really well. It just seems like this part of Isner's career, when he plays guys that move really well, it puts an awful lot of stress or pressure on his own serve, which has been good throughout his career in general, of course, with one of the bigger serves. And the big thing with Isner is he typically serves really well from first serve percentage, especially when you compare him to other guys with gigantic first serves. Guys like, your Kyrgioses, your Kevin Andersons, even Bublik. Isner's first serve percentage is usually in the mid-60s, which is, for how big it is, it's extremely impressive that he keeps it that high. Here, it's kind of tough to say what we're going to get from either player, but what do you think? What are you looking for here? Now, we could talk in totals here. Total's 25.5, which I guess kind of makes sense. And by the way, there's really no difference between 24.5 and 25.5. I mean, very little anyway. So overall, what are your thoughts here? And do you lean over maybe a three-setter in the mix, maybe? What are your thoughts here, Spread?
Yeah, I mean, we never bet under in Isner matches, right? So it's over or past there. Lean towards the over. And on the side, I like Lane with the -147. Normally we try and stay away from bets like this, but I can't lay the games here with John Isner because you talked about the fact that he's not going to get a lot of break chances here. So I'll lay the -147 here. It really depends on your personal threshold. I personally won't mind laying the 140. Mine was 147 and doing it straight. Some people will like to parlay it with maybe a little more sure thing to get it to even money. And if that's the case, we'll be able to find some of those there for you to add it to. But I don't want to lay the 1.5 because we talked about Isner's, basically lack of ability to break serve. So we can see a lot of tie breaks here. One of the reasons I like Isner, or the main reason, is I do like his fact that he's warmed up on hard courts in North America for this tournament. He did not attend the Olympics. He went down to Mexico to play, got a couple matches in there, and then won Atlanta, which is, infamously dubbed the John Isner Open because he wins it every year. But hey, what a better way to get started for hard court season than go down there. Those are quicker hard courts. It slows up a little here, so that's better for ADF than matching him up in Atlanta. But still, I think he's more primed and ready to go than Fokina, who played the Olympics, lost to Djokovic, so no, you can't harm that at all. But he beat Millman. That's a pretty good win, although I didn't think Millman was in great form, and Pedro Sousa. But before that, all he played was Wimbledon, Eastbourne, French Open, so he doesn't have any hard court at all. Well, Isner's played 2 hard court tournaments. Give me the guy that loves playing in North America on his favorite surface. I'll take John Isner.
Yeah, I can't blame you there. I don't really bet a whole lot of Isner matches in general, just because it's so predicated on him, either serving big and consistent. And if it goes tiebreaks, of course, he's the favorite. But I'll tell you this: recently in tiebreaks, it's not like he's been winning all his tiebreaks like he usually does. I know for
right. That's why I won't lay the 1.5.
Yeah, he's got legit numbers. He's got legit career numbers in tiebreaks. But recently, like his last year or so, he hasn't been as dominant specifically in tiebreaks. But overall, I can't argue. Look, I personally just don't usually bet a lot of Isner matches ever. All right, so Lajovic and Ruusuvuori looks like current line. Ruusuvuori 255. It's going to be one of the bigger lines we even talk about on this show. I think this actually might be the biggest, including the women's end. So what do we get here? So you get Ruusuvuori in tremendous form, and I thought that, and I know that he lost to Sinner. But how bad of a loss could that have been? Sinner went wire to wire in that tournament. So I still think Ruusuvuori is in good form, and I think it was just Sinner had tremendous form all tournament long, and he ran into that buzzsaw earlier in that tournament. If in your opinion, Spread, is this warranted though of a 255 line? Well, Lajovic hasn't seen any hardcourt play, and he's never really been an excellent hardcourter either. At least it's not his favorite surface anyway. What are your thoughts here? Is this line a bit too inflated with how well he's been playing, or is there more to it?
Nope, the line is correct. And it's funny that you mentioned lost to Sinner, because that was kind of making the rounds there on Sunday on tennis Twitter, as a couple handicappers were pretty upset that wanted to run Brooksby down for losing to Sinner. And so it's just funny that came up here in this conversation, as tennis Twitter was having a lot of fun with that. But no, let's go ahead and fade the dirt baller, right? Lajovic, that's the reason he didn't come over here to play hard courts. Why would he come, do really tough when he could grab these points in Hamburg and Umag? So, and that's what he did. Now he's coming over here because basically the clay court shuts down for a little while, but he wants to play on clay. He's not comfortable over here. Ruusuvuori is comfortable on the surface, in better form. Minus 250. It's if anything, I like Ruusuvuori more than the number that you're getting. I've got minus 240 on my screen here. I don't want to go for Lajovic in these conditions here today.
Yeah, I can't blame you either. And Ramon brings up a decent point in regards to DraftKings and how pricing works. I mean, the pricing is always relative to lines, right? And I know that I guess he was the 5th highest player. And we're not going to talk much on DFS. I mean, unless, of course, you guys have questions on DFS and how it relates to slates. Of course, happy to help. I've definitely played my fair share of tennis DFS. For the most part, though, you'll see that too. Pricing is always related to odds, and you can find holes like that. Regardless of opponent or whatnot, but there will be price mismatches at times, and you do get top heavy fields with certain people as well. So it is a DFS is an interesting approach as it relates to tennis. And Thomas, in your side here, should I bet him or wait for Pospisil to hold? You could probably wait for him to hold. You'll get Paul at dog money at that point, but then it's a big risk because the hope is that this wouldn't have went to tiebreak. Pospisil, am I pronouncing that right, Scott?
Pospisil. Pospisil, and I only know that because I mispronounced it on our ATP pod yesterday, and they corrected me. It's Pospisil.
Pospisil's got the bigger serve there, Thomas, and I'm a little worried there well, maybe more clear. He's a little more consistent on serve. Tommy Paul's a little more erratic, so I don't necessarily love the idea of him in the tiebreak. But you'll get a better number, yes, if you wait. But maybe that's up to you. Okay, so next match up we have, which is I don't think there's a line yet. Right, I chose this match specifically because maybe we could do the create a line thing. Which, by the way, I thought you did really well with the Korda match last week. Mm-hmm. Almost pinned it. Now Korda didn't take nearly as much money as we thought, and then he loses 2 tie breaks, which is even more tilting. Mm-hmm. Especially the second set spread, where if you remember, he was up a double break. And that's still
but he pulled out today, and so he wasn't 100% in that match, I don't think. So he's not even playing Toronto, and it was funny because I had pegged him to make a little run here in this tournament, so that was a little disappointing as well. So I'm not going to hold him failing in the tiebreak against him, especially since he's pulled out now and he wasn't 100%.
So this will be the only match we don't have a line on, and
Okay.
Nishioka and Tiafoe. Now this match is still happening, right? It didn't get that's because Korda got scratched, and that's why this match is the one that's happening. What do you expect this line to be, spread?
Ooh, this one's a little tougher.
Right?
I would say so. Both of them. So wait, how did this work? Why is Tiafoe's most recent result a loss?
He's a lucky loser that's getting an entrance with Korda's scratch.
Oh wow. Okay. Wow, he was that far down, huh? Okay, I didn't even realize he had to qualify for this. If I were to make this, I don't know. I would still probably have Tiafoe as a favorite, though, right? Minus 135, minus 140.
Yeah, I don't know how Tiafoe wouldn't be favored here, but again, there is that lucky loser narrative, right, where it does.
Yeah.
So I think maybe a little lighter, maybe like 120. You don't see. You do see it. It's just not very common that a guy loses in qualies and then first round is favored.
Yeah, but I mean, losing to Ruusuvuori is a little different than beating Fili Lopez, who is like, he's just like a tournament director that still plays like every once in a while, right? I mean, he's 39 years old, so
that's true.
Think that has to be taken into account.
I didn't realize Ruusuvuori also had to do it as well.
Ruusuvuori is the one that knocked out Tiafoe.
Yeah, so then you're right. Yeah. I mean, I guess it maybe $130 makes sense. I mean, so we'll maybe I'll consensually say we'll stay there at 130. But I think it does. I think the line does make sense there. So assuming that is the line, do you see any value there?
I still like Tiafoe, especially if I think it should be minus 140. I was trying to think of a number, basically that I would not play Tiafoe at, and it was like minus 150. So that's why I dropped it down to minus 140. At minus 130, I think you're good. Like I said, he was a lucky loser, but he beat JJ Wolf, who's one of our favorites, right? And he's definitely going to make some waves on the tour. And then Ruusuvuori, who's a player that we're high on. Contrast that to Mo, right? And then Fili Lopez. Those aren't the best wins. So, the JJ Wolf win is much better. Then you look at what they did in Washington. Tiafoe lost to a very good Brooksby, where, Nishioka lost to Jack Sock, right? Yeah. So, I mean, Jack Sock is still cool and everything, right? But it's still a little difference here. So I like Tiafoe here. So Tiafoe matches are tough to bet, though. He's definitely a hitter player, right? I mean, he definitely has the bet as the dog, fade as a favorite vibe.
Now, one of the better matches, I think, for tomorrow in general, or one of the best matches, Cam Norrie and Karen Khachanov. This line's almost a pick 'em. Khachanov's a small favorite at $120. At least he was. Is he still that the current line? Yeah, minus 125. Yeah, I mean, you get a player in Cam Norrie that's been in tremendous form. Did hiccup though against, was it Nishikori that beat him recently? Came back from a set down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that a bad loss? And then he loses to Ruusuvuori in Atlanta, where Ruusuvuori just looked like a freak over there. Outside of that, I mean, this dude's consistent. Like, he doesn't lose to players he shouldn't. He gives almost everybody a hard time. Khachanov comes in here off tremendous form from the Olympics. But I guess that's an interesting, because you can make an argument for both, right? You could say, well, Cam Norrie as a small dog is ridiculous. I mean, the dude just has been almost as consistent as anybody's been on tour all season. Mm-hmm. And Khachanov just coming off one good Olympic tournament run, right? So how much do you value that? And obviously Cam Norrie beat him twice on clay and then lost hard court earlier. But I'd argue the clay run for Cam Norrie has really started this like new form version of him with a lot of consistent play. So I'd argue the version of him that was playing hard courts earlier in the year was not the same version that played clay, and certainly not the same version that came back on hard courts towards now, the present. What do you think of this line? Do you think it's fair? Do you think it's right? And is there any value at any spot for you, spread?
Yeah, so this one that the line moved against me. I was hoping that I would be able to give out Khachanov on this. He's been bet a lot, and I don't think there's value there anymore. You look at Norrie, that Washington loss it's arguably his worst loss of the season. Yep. I mean, the guy only loses to top players, right? He lost to Nadal at the French, Ruusuvuori, who we just gave a lot of credit to. He lost to Federer at Wimbledon, Berrettini in London. I mean, it's just like Tsitsipas in Lyon, right? I mean, this guy is not losing to players he shouldn't be. He's beating the players that he should, and he's only losing to the very, very best. Khachanov coming off this amazing run in the Olympics. I felt he was undervalued there. and I was thinking that he's undervalued here again. Unfortunately, the rest of the market agreed with me, and now at minus 130, there's no more value. I think that it's Norrie or pass. I'm going to go ahead and pass now. Unfortunately, at the opening numbers, I think it opened at pick.
I believe it.
So,
I believe it. Yeah, we'll see how it
yeah.
goes. I think that if Norrie climbs to even a bigger dog, I mean, to me, that is a tough player not to want to play. I mean, it kind of like reminds me of when Norrie played Kyrgios, and Kyrgios saw a ton of steam, and you watch the match, and you're like, one guy has been tremendously consistent, and the other guy just hasn't been playing tennis. So, just overall, not that you're getting similar. It's not apples to apples here, but it's interesting to see Norrie.
Yeah, because I think the price opened correctly, and now the public is actually giving you value.
Yeah.
But I think coming in and overvaluing an Olympic run, over at Atlanta and Mexican run, but those I think actually help you more. The conditions are more similar. The time zones are the same. I mean, so it's a tough one. I wanted to bet Khachanov here, and when I originally sent it to you, I thought the line was going to be even, and a pick I like Khachanov, but not at this number.
All right, so move over to the final match that we have here. And again, we don't have every line, so we want to be able to at least give you guys lines that we know. So Mackie McDonald, Benoit Paire. Now, this is a tournament where McDonald is a short turnaround, but his form was tremendous. Normally, you see these types of matches where the market tends to fade guys that have had a long tourney run, heading only on a day or so rest, and then back at it again. Benoit Paire is as mercurial as a player is, or was at least as mercurial as a player was on the ATP side. I mean, it almost looks like at times like he's fixing matches, and then at times you just see tremendous brilliance from him. He's got a big serve, right? Nothing that Mackie McDonald hadn't seen though in the last week or so. Is the line we see today spread at Mackie McDonald minus 200? Because think about it, right? If this match gets played a week ago, this line is not what it currently is. So is this an overreaction to form, or do we actually fall in love with the form we've seen from Mackie coming into this match?
It's just a pair fade. It's just a pair fade. The guy, I mean, if you just go look at his Twitter, he's like, I don't want to do another bubble. I don't think his mind's on tennis. And normally we'd fade McDonald coming off the long week. I think we wait one more match to do that because Paire's not the guy to take advantage of that. So I think the line's right. I'm not getting involved, and I think that he's going to be fool's gold when you're filling out like a DFS lineup, right? And you're going to see him real cheap. But,
yeah, I think you could argue, if anything, that an under here could make sense because, again, to me, if Paire wins the first set, he wants to play. And if he wants to play, you're going to get a good version of him and one that might frustrate Mackie McDonald. And the other end of it is if Mackie McDonald wins the first set, I think it's just a matter of him being outclassed here and not wanting to care. I do think this is a good shot that this goes under 2.5 sets. And with the total at 20, you could create yourself 22 with the lines the way they are. I think that could make sense as well. So under there would be my look.
I think you found the winning play.
Yeah, 22 makes a lot of sense. When you talk about how erratic both players are, likely the guy who wins the first set likely wins the match and likely ends up winning. I would think, again, from a mental perspective, it would make sense. All right, so let's slide over to the women's end spread, where I know you love yourself some ladies tennis. What matches do we have here to talk on? Okay, so Coco Gauff and Sevastova. What's the current line here? So Coco minus 230, Sevastova plus 180. So what's not to love about Coco's game, right? I mean, I know she's still super young, but it just seems like every time you watch her, the surface doesn't matter. She just continues to improve. She proved to be a great clay player, which is impressive with all her skill set. Sevastova is interesting, right? Because she loses to Martic, and like her form looked really bad, almost like out of nowhere. I mean, yeah, she lost to Farrow, but I mean that was a strange match. And Krejcikovac's never a bad loss. So what do you take here? To me, the price seems a little short in favor of Coco, actually, even at 230, 235. What are your thoughts here? Sevastova is like a little gnat at times, though, right? What do you think here, Spread?
I think the play to go for is the over. And just my ideas, I think Coco's going to win. I don't want to lay minus 222 on it or whatever she is. That's far too much. I don't want to lay the games. I just, at 20.5, she has a penchant to go 3 sets against players that aren't even, close to her level. And she has a tendency to get into the 7s a lot and not win the sets in the 6s, right? So I like the over here. I think it's a much better look than trying to grab a side. Although I do agree that if you are looking for like a parlay piece, like to maybe get down the price that we talked about earlier, the minus 145 on Isner, I think Coco would be a good candidate.
Awesome. Awesome. And now this should be an interesting match for you because this is your girl Mertens and my girl Giorgi.
That's my dad's favorite too.
And this line's right to me. I mean, Mertens should be about $1.60. But this goes to your point, right? Mertens typically doesn't lose to players that she shouldn't, that are ranked or below her or above her, however you want to define it. And here it is here. But Giorgi can definitely play like a top 10 player at times. So I'm interested in your take here and what you think on this match because Giorgi on any given day can beat anybody with the firepower off her racket and how well she moves. But she can also just pile up unforced error after unforced error. And a player like Mertens is super smart. So you would think that would kind of help her end of things. What's your thoughts on this line?
Yeah, I like Elise a lot here. I think Elise is really going to frustrate Camila. And you look at Camila, right? Vesnina, she's like kind of all-court player. Then she plays Pliskova in the Olympics. Hey, that's great. I want to bang with you, right? Who does she lose to? Svitolina, a player like Mertens who's going to defend, only use your strength against you. She's never going to dial it up or on her own. She's only going to redirect your pace. And that's exactly what Elise likes to do as well. So I think that Giorgi's going to have problems here. And while she is fun, and when she redlines, she's probably, like you said, she's a top 10 player. I prefer to hope that she redlines against players that aren't going to ask so many questions of her. Players that are going to hit with her, where it's going to be a lot of who can hit the winners better. Against players that will ground her out, I think that she does have the ability to get frustrated, and she'll pack it in too. Like you're talking about with Paire. If she loses that first set, she's probably going home. We're probably not going 3. So at only minus 175, I think that's a little short for Elise, who, when you're betting tennis, is one of the few sure things that you can get as far as effort and level of play. It's pretty consistent every time.
Awesome. I like it. Annette Kontaveit, Jessie Pegula. Sorry. Jessie's minus 125, right? Now, 2 hard hitters, right? You have interesting match overall, right? I think that Jessie's kind of come in and out of good form. And Kontaveit, I feel like, you talk about players that are typically consistent. You barely ever get like a bad match from her. I mean, so what are your thoughts here? I mean, I think the over is 21.5. I think that makes sense. Maybe even a 2.5 setter makes sense over. This could be an interesting back and forth. At least you would assume it would be. What's your thoughts there, Spread?
Yeah, so I like Pegula here. Kontaveit's really coming in on bad forms, 3 straight losses. She lost to Ostapenko at Eastbourne after a nice little run where we all got excited for her. Then she lost to Vondrousova at Wimbledon, which isn't a terrible loss, but a matchup, and you would have thought that she would have won. She was favored going in due to form. And then she lost to Sakkari in the Olympics, which isn't a terrible loss, but again, it's a matchup that you would think that her style would dictate. So when she loses those type of matches, it makes me think she's not playing her best. So now she has to turn around from there and go against Pegula, who played a little bit over here. I just had a exhibition against Gauff. So she's been over here a little longer, although Pegula was in the Olympics as well. So about the same turnaround. Regardless, I don't think Kontaveit's in the best form right now. I do agree with you. I'd rather be on the over than the under, but I'll go ahead and take Jessie Pegula.
I like it. All right, so Kudermetova and Putintseva. I thought we spoke a bit on Putintseva last week against Anya, right? Mm-hmm. And then she ended up losing to Mertens. But I thought she played well in that match against Anya. I thought it was a nice back and forth, and rallies kept it going. And as we discussed, it would be a really long match in that respect. Mm-hmm. Here, though, this is an interesting dynamic with these two, very similar to a nice back and forth I would have expected with a few of the other women's matches we discussed. Kudermetova here seems a bit big. I mean, am I alone on that island, or what do you think?
I like Putintseva here as the dog, right? Are you getting short money on her still?
Plus 150.
Yeah, I bet this last night. It's about the same. Yeah, plus 140, 14, and then they're spreading this pretty hard, minus 140 against plus 114. But Yeah, I like Putintseva here. Another case where I don't like Kudermetova's form. She had an absolutely terrible grass season. She only won one match. That was against Muhova. You'd think, hey, grass season's starting off great, right? Then she loses to Samsonova. Risk, which isn't a bad loss because Risk is like 10 times better on grass than she's either in a service. Golubic, and then she lost to Garbine in the Olympics. So, these aren't terrible losses. It's been a while since she's, raised her hand in victory. And, before that, it was all clay. And that's not the best service for her. I think the slower hard courts will lead to Putinseva's favor. I don't think that Kudermetova is going to be able to blow her off the court. Like, for example, next week, I would take Putintseva in this exact same matchup. Because I think at Cincinnati, Kudermetova's power would really play a lot more. But this week, being a little slower here with them both, transitioning to be over here in North America, although Putintseva was already in North America, but she was over on my coast, not over there. So it's still a little bit of adjustment for both, maybe even less for Kudermetova. I don't know how long she's been in Toronto for, but regardless, I still like Putintseva. We got Kudermetova not off the best form. Putintseva, the type of player that's going to make her ask questions of her, make her prove she's at her best, and just continue to get the ball back and wear her down. That's not the type of player you want to get in form with. A player like Kudermetova to get back in form wants to be in a shootout, and hit lots of winners and getting that type of vibe. Putintseva is really going to wear you down. I like Putintseva at the dog price here.
No, I like it. And so I got one quick question here. Opelka Kyrgios. So I'll tell you this. Now Kyrgios has been steamed down for this match. It's actually 135 I'm seeing at DK. Might even be 130 at some spots. He might see even more steam down. I actually think this is a good spot to back Kyrgios. And this has more to do with he's played a few good movers recently. So he's played Mackey, and then he played Cam Norrie. Okay. Kyrgios, believe it or not, is actually an above average returner when he wants to be. And Opelka, to me, is one of the worst returners on the men's side, as far as like guys are like in the top, call it 100 on the ATP end. I get it. Kyrgios' form has been bad, but he's also played good movers. He wiped out Kevin Anderson a few weeks ago. Opelka's another big server, moves awful. To me, Kyrgios moves really well for his size. To me, this now makes sense to back Kyrgios. Not like I've backed Kyrgios in his other matches because I haven't trusted his form fitness wise. I don't think that's going to matter much today or tonight's match. So actually, at the new price, I lean Kyrgios at 135. That's Fred Mr.
Yeah, I hate to agree with you. I don't want to bet on Nick Kyrgios. Like, if it's just who do I want to win, I'd rather have Riley Opelka win personally. But I completely agree with you. All the numbers say Kyrgios, regardless of how much we don't like him. His whole break numbers are much better than Opelka's. And you mentioned it. He's an underrated returner. Opelka kind of gets credit for being the best returner of the Americans, right? But, we talked about it, right? I mean, that's like, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Being the most in shape guy at the buffet, or the fastest guy. It's going to be inappropriate if I say it. We'll leave it there. But anyway, anyways, yeah, I like Kyrgios there as well.
Yeah, not a spot I like love. I mean, look, if it got to like 125 pre, I mean, I'd legitimately jump in because to me now, you get the Kyrgios perception, which has been everybody wants to back him on these hard courts. It's a fun guy to watch. They always put him in prime time. But he's been tough to watch against good movers, but he is not exactly playing a good mover today. And if he can just be average on serve, Opelka is going to do nothing on his end. So either way, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels like just take the easy bet and take the over. It's still juiced to minus 133 over 25.5. It still feels like value. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. All right, so let's talk on the last and final match here. Yastremska and Sloane Stephens. So I wanted to do this match because I think that it's an interesting dynamic, right? I mean, what happened to Yastremska? I mean, this was like the next up-and-coming young, talented women's player, and maybe the yips spread. I mean, what do you think is going on with Yastremska? Because I'd argue, alternatively, Sloane Stephens has looked pretty good, almost like a rejuvenation, if you will, to a certain extent. I don't want to sound like I'm praising her all that much for her recent form. But this is like two players going in different directions, and I don't know necessarily if the line indicates as such. But at some point, these lines are going to move far enough against Yastremska where there's going to be value. But how could there be value in a player that just doesn't have good form? So what do you think on how you get these two players' current form coming into this match and how it relates to what the line is?
Yeah, so Yastremska, right? One of the hottest players in 2020, then had a doping ban, since been overturned. Won't go into specifics of it. I don't know if it's true, but I read that the rumor was she claimed that the substance got in her body through intimacy with her boyfriend who was using the banned substance and not her. So I didn't read the official report though, so I don't know if that's true. Anyway, so she just came back. She just got reinstated, I think, like right before Wimbledon, if I remember right, maybe a little sooner, but she just jumped back in. She's obviously rusty, obviously has not been playing. And then you have a Sloane Stephens. I think she looks in pretty good shape. I think she looks a lot fitter than she did when I saw her on the court last year at this time. She looks like she's put a little extra emphasis on her fitness. And then I also think, and I can't believe I'm backing Sloane here because I've faded Sloane for about the last 2 years, and it's been like the easiest bet. Like sometimes I wonder, why do I make any other bets besides fading Sloane Stephens? Because I could just do that and just retire. But I'm going to back Sloane Stephens here because I think that you're right. Yes, Trump's form's bad. Stevens' forms is improved, and I also just love the matchup. Stevens loves to play defense. Yastrzemska is going to attack. I think Stevens is going to be in her comfort zone. You know who Stevens doesn't like is the players like Mertens and Svitolina and the ones that are going to make her attack. And we think, oh, why? Because we watch her, and she's got an all-court game, and she can dial it up and hit winners. But this is what I learned back when they had the on-court coaching, and you can listen to her talk. And I remember I was watching a lot when they first started doing it because it was so cool just taking notes. And one thing I noticed, she always felt uncomfortable against the other pushers. But against the other attackers, you could feel her just kind of get a pep in her step. She loves to counterpunch. I think it's a great matchup for Sloane Stephens. I'll take her as the dog.
I think you'll see. Well, I think Sloane's favored. Yeah, Sloane's favored at a $140. But I think you'll see.
Oh, I read this wrong. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's all good.
I thought Sloane was plus 118.
It's all good. I think.
Never mind. At minus 145, this price is right. You can't bet it. Excuse me. Excuse me.
No, it's all good. I think overall, there's probably going to be a lot of break opportunities in this match.
Yeah.
I think. Look, again, Yastremska's form's been woeful, right? Mm-hmm. So it makes it tough to want to back, any piece of each of that, but. Overall, I think you get a good back and forth. Could even be an over in play. Was it 21-ish? But again, you're gonna have your heart on your sleeve because there's literally going to be break opportunities. I feel like in most service games. So overall, I like the look in terms of you're getting a player in form versus player not in form. And I don't know if the line, even at 140 spread, I don't know how much the line's really taking into account how poor Yastremska's look and how good Sloane Stephens' form looked. I felt ever since one of those clay tournaments. I'm trying to think of. Maybe the one after Rome. To your point, like I just saw her physically, and I'm like, whoa, she's a whole different person. Goes back to her fitness, her dedication towards it, and it's shown. It's shown. And her serve is below average for sure on the women's end, or as that goes. But again, Yastremska piles up double faults. To me, it's going to be which player hurts themselves less, and Sloane Stephens should be the one that does that. All right, so thank you, folks, for watching. Spread any final notes for tomorrow? Any matches we didn't discuss that maybe you want to give a hint at?
No, I think those are all we talked about every match except for I do like Shuai Zhang over Joe Konta, but that one's rough to bet because Konta is really good on hard courts, but she's missed a lot of time, so she had to withdraw from Wimbledon because of COVID. And I don't think that she had it, but someone in her camp had it, so she had to withdraw. It's really tough to judge her form. At the same time, Shuai Zhang has been playing great. I was really impressed with how she played in San Jose this week. So I have a slight lean there to Shuai Zhang. And then the other match we didn't talk is Karo Garcia versus Pavlyuchenkova. I usually fade Karo. What's the price they gave us here? Minus 250 is too much. Just stay away from that one.
Awesome. Well, folks, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please give us a like. We're not asking you for much. Also, subscribe if you have not already. I'll be back with an MLB play later tonight, posted, for tomorrow. Joey will then have you covered for the next few nights as well. Spread likely will be back Wednesday with Wednesday, Friday. So stay tuned for that as well. And again, content always on the channel. Be sure to check us out, Run Pure Bets, runpuresports.com. See what we're all about. As always, folks, be sure to gamble responsibly. Stay safe, and we will catch you next time. Later.